Yo, Drip, I just want to congratulate you on an excellent video here. I have been trying to educate people on the DC cosmology for at least 11 years. I'm on my almost 11th year anniversary of talking about the exact same dimensional things that you were talking about in your video. So I just wanted to congratulate you on the dimensional aspect of that because you are correct. And that some people overwank DC beyond the boundaries of imagination itself, and it is really stressful, so I'm right there with you on those subjects. However, there are a couple other points that I wanted to kind of touch on in the video that I had some problems with, and they're minor things, and there's only a couple of them, only just a little small handful that I would like to go over with you, and I'm going to call out each one of them and let people know what the timestamp is in the original video so they can go back and watch it if they want to. I'm not going to clip your video. I want to make this as fast as possible. And again, this is not a hate thing. I think the things that you're talking about are very minor and they can be easily overlooked if, you don't really investigate the author statements and the guidebooks and all this stuff. So anyway, here we go. Here's the first one. At 9:52 in the timestamp on your video, it's your theory that you're saying that it's not voids and spaces inside of spaces. However, that's exactly what the comic book says, and also what multiple authors have said that this is actually all about. My problem with this is that you didn't give any actual clarification or any actual evidence to why you have this theory. I understand that you said it's theory, and it's really, really, really rare for people to say, hey, it's just my theory. I don't have any evidence whatsoever, so I respect the hell out of you for that. But in like overall terms, it's really important for readers and DC enthusiasts to know this was addressed by the authors. It was addressed in the comics. It was addressed in the guidebooks. And the context for it being spaces inside of spaces, trapped in an endless void of paper and ink, repeatedly going down infinitely, has been addressed in the comics on an objective level. So the next one I'd like to look into, time step 1302. You said Darkseid falling out of a conceptual realm from a higher dimensional space alludes to the idea that the higher dimensional space isn't conceptual, but it is. That's what happens when a conceptual being is automatically converted the wrong way to a physical being. When you drop out of the higher conceptual space down into the tangible mortal realms, it's gonna cause some problems. And that is the whole point of Darkseid's shadow falling through the entire multiverse and breaking it. But the funny thing is, it didn't really even do that much damage. Yeah, it made a hole at the base of creation, as Final Crisis said it did, but it the multiverse kept going on for thousands and thousands of years after this happened. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. So it's just a higher conceptual entity falling from a conceptual zone, a conceptual dimension, down into a physical one and causing physical harm to the physical realms of the orrery of worlds. That's what happened. Yeah, and it's really not that. It's just, something small to gloss over, not really anything too big. The next one, at 1353, you said, time inside of the sphere of gods isn't literal. That it is literal, and it's really no different from time anywhere else. So that means you can't scale the sphere of gods to anything in a conceptual, intangible, unphysical manner. That is not true, as the sphere of gods being linear in motion, meaning it can have entities that learn, that create, that can talk, that can speak, that can do action. It's called linearity in the world of physics and philosophy. So linearity is outside of the scope and scales infinitely higher than the boundaries of time and space. Again, in the sphere of gods, we have a being called Father Time, and Father Time dictates the flow of linear motion, not physical, but on a conceptual level that flows through the entire sphere of gods. That means that angels, the presence, God, Lucifer, Michael, everybody in the sphere of gods can speak to one another. They can perform actions. They can do things from start to finish, from A to B. They can create where there was nothing and then have something. They can make a painting and add to it over time. That time is not the actual standard tangible mortal realm time. That's the fourth dimension. Linearity is a philosophical and religious concept that was embodied by Father Time, and linearity and actual time and space are not the same thing, so you are confusing the two here. The sphere of gods is entirely linear based, not regular physics based time. So the next one, at 1440, you used a snapshot of the time barrier through the Dark Multiverse, but the entire Tales of the Dark Multiverse series is non-canon to DC. These are what-if stories that actually didn't even take place. If you listen to Steve Orlando talk about this on Twitter, this entire comic book series is completely non-canon. Actually, the events in it did not even happen. It's a what-if story. So when we're using scans that are completely non-canon and actually did not happen, we can't use them to justify anything else. So the next one, at 1528, you said conceptual doesn't mean conceptual, but that's actually a fallacy. You didn't provide any actual evidence to that whatsoever. Conceptual means conceptual, flat out. It's not a revision of whatever you say it is or whatever any other fan thinks it should be. This was defined as a conceptual, unphysical thing. So revising the word conceptual in another way is actually a logical fallacy. The next one, 1639 timestamp. You said Plato is dumb. Plato is not dumb, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Plato is not dumb. Next, 1655. Darkseid was called the ultimate embodiment of evil by you. That also is not true. Grant Morrison tells us that Darkseid and Lucifer and Dr. Hurt are actually avatars and emanations of the ultimate concept of evil, which was Mandrak. So Darkseid is not what you said it was. The actual embodiment of pure evil on the highest level was confirmed repeatedly to be Mandrak and not Darkseid. So Darkseid is actually a lower emanation of Mandrak. The next one, 1659. You said that the Radion bullet affected Darkseid's true form, but it actually didn't. It only affected his prime avatar's body. After that body was wiped out and taken by the Black Racer, the true form of Darkseid lingered on the Earth and in the mortal realms for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I think Final Crisis said that there's like a 10,000-year time skip or something like that between when the Black Racer took Darkseid and when Superman went to the end of time and he was working on the Miracle Machine and then Roxogama showed up. So, right before that, Superman sings out Darkseid from existence. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of years between the point he got shot and that point. So the Radion bullet didn't really affect his true form in the slightest. And that's not opinion. That was stated and shown in the comic book. Next, 1752 timestamp. You said that the New Genesis beings in the Sphere of Gods are actually physical despite them being conceptual. They're saying that they use boom tubes to make themselves larger, and because they said they made themselves larger, that means it's a physical thing and you're supposed to just ignore that it's a conceptual context. Well, no, it's a conceptual context. It's not a literal statement. It is a realm of immaterial, unphysical things beyond even the concept of physicality. It's on the very outskirts of time and space, on an omniversal scale. That's where New Genesis and the Sphere of Gods is. And this is not a literal physical place. This is a conceptual place. So when they make themselves bigger, the boom tubes actually convert physical to conceptual. That's what it means by being bigger. And when New Genesis holds all the bubbles of the other realms within itself, that doesn't mean that it's a physical thing. The conceptual realms hold all of the mortal realms and the physical tangible realms. You also said in some other instance that the size of the bubbles, because it's a bubble, it must be a physical thing. But that also is a fallacy because, again, a conceptual bubble contains a tangible and physical realm, and the physical realm itself is still conceptual, being contained by an even higher and more intense conceptual location of the Sphere of Gods. So next, 2005 in the timestamp. You said that the monitor sphere is 4D. which again is another fallacy, just blatant not true. The monitors told you that bleed space is 4D. So if the monitor sphere, logically, follow me here, if the monitor sphere is above the bleed space and bleed space is 4D, then what does that make the monitor sphere? Something higher than 4D. Again, so, you know, basic stuff right there. And this one, oh geez. You said the cosmic armor was poking the realm of limbo from the monitor sphere. Okay, look. I don't know where people get this from. They think the cosmic armor and Nil are in the monitor sphere during Final Crisis. We saw in Final Crisis, Nil gets completely wiped out, and then a new Nil gets made after that and placed in the 2014 map 7 years later in the DC Cosmology. That Nil on the map is not the same one as in Final Crisis. This comic book, Final Crisis, tells you that Nil is outside of the source wall. It's in the overvoid. It says it blatantly. It's even in the guidebooks. Over and over and over, Nil contains everything else. The cosmic armor and this Nil is not inside of the monitor sphere. I have no clue where people are getting that from. It doesn't make any sense to me. So that's another fallacy. 2038 in the timestamp. You said that there's a contradiction that exists in the Limbo scans where Limbo can't be anything unphysical and just a living memory because it says Quantum Superman used quantum superposition in this location. It was a conceptual merging with the continuity of DC Comics. Limbo is the actual continuity flow and retcon area of DC Comics. But not only that, it's actually, according to Grant in the guidebook and other statements, that Limbo is attached to every single other franchise that exists, not just DC. Captain Allen merged with the concept of continuity, which is why he told Ultraman, I am the reason why you are the way you are. Everybody in the DCU was written the way they were because of Captain Allen. So there is no contradiction there. Saying it's a contradiction is also another fallacy. At 2156, you said the cosmic armor is nothing but a giant robot, and also that regular suns can hurt him. Now, I have never heard anything so naive in my entire life, and I'm gonna give it to you on that one. This topic really irks me. The cosmic armor is the embodiment of all story. This is not opinion. This is what the authors in the guidebook says, and the comic book too. The cosmic armor wrapped around the entire flaw of existence. You're saying that this is just a regular mech suit? It's a completely physical, regular robot? No, dude. This thing has pre-adaption before anything is a threat. It demonstrated live in combat transcendence, meaning the power of nuh-uh, I'm stronger times infinity. And it did it over and over and over and over again until time untold with Mandrake. Bleed is what that attack was. Mandrake here, using the heat of 10 billion suns, is a reference to the death sun that Grant Morrison often talks about in other interviews. The death sun is a metaphor for the end of continuity. Okay? It's not a regular attack. It's the end of an entire story. You ended the story. It was deleted. That's a death sun. That's what that means. So 10 billion endings of continuities was brushed off by the cosmic armor. And just remember, this is 52 universes worth of bleed space, and you in your video said just one drop of it was enough to puncture a hole in the source wall that Perpetua could not get out of. So what is one drop times 52 universes worth of drops? That's what cosmic armor was impacted with, and he brushed it off and transcended that. So it's not just a little thing. It's literally the biggest and most impressive feat in all of DC Comics history. So, like, the Thought Robot is the embodiment of every single other character, location, energy, and concept in the entirety of DC Comics. That isn't even opinion. That is directly stated. So next, 2322, you said the bleed contains the fifth dimension, or that they're both. No, excuse me. You said that bleed is the fifth dimension, but the scan says that the watchtower rotates through the bleed into the fifth dimension. So the fifth dimension is somehow tied to bleed space. It's inside of it somewhere, and this coin is rotating on its axis through both of them. So saying that two different locations are one location is actually a logical fallacy. Next, 2510. You said anyone can go to the Overvoid because you flashed a picture from Countdown to Final Crisis and other series where the source wall was destroyed. Grant Morrison himself tells you that Countdown is non-canon to Final Crisis, so you can't use this as a justification for your theory here if the author has told us directly that Countdown is not canon to Final Crisis. Those events didn't happen in Final Crisis. It's actually the other way around. Next, 2525. You said the sixth dimension is at the edge of existence, but that is also a logical fallacy because the comic book and the guidebook also tell you that limbo is the edge of existence. Look, right here, the edge of existence, the final barrier. This is the final barrier. That is what it is. So again, another logical fallacy to say the sixth dimension is above all that. It's not. 2325, I want to go back for a second. So this one really got me. This one actually made me a little bit emotional. You said that the monitor sphere is the origin point for the 4 major bleed drains that were shown on the cosmic map. And then you flashed a picture of a photoshopped map of the orrery of worlds and the cosmic map, and you deleted all of the overvoid section off of this, and you tried to pass this along like this is what it showed. But the actual original thing shows that the bleed drains came from the overvoid, drilled through the source wall, went through the monitor sphere, all the way through the sphere of gods, and into the orrery. So you have photoshopped something here to try to pass this along like it's an actual truth. But this is not just logical fallacy, this is just plain out lying. You've tried to censor this, is what this is. No, Nil was out in the overvoid during this series in Final Crisis. It was not in the monitor sphere. We saw the original Nil get completely revised. And here's another one for you. At the end of Final Crisis, New Genesis and Apocalypse become one single location. That's Nix Wotan's new version of the multiverse. We never got a map between 2008 and 2014. It wasn't until later in 2014 that we got the Multiversity one. And on the Multiversity one, we can see New Genesis and Apocalypse are back to being two separate entities. So this map in cosmology is not the same as Final Crisis. So next time we're going to flash images and try to educate people, Drip, please do not Photoshop and try to censor what the actual truth of this is. Nil was out in the overvoid, and Mandrak drilled from the overvoid as the comic book says. Now, furthermore, if you don't believe me, everybody here should be listening to the omniscient Book of Limbo that has no reason to lie and has all the answers, that says Mandrak is the true god of all things, and also he's building a bridge from the overvoid into the multiverse. So it wasn't that he was already in the multiverse, it was that he originally started outside of it. That's what the comic book says. So again, there's a lot of misinformation going on here, but again, for the most part, man, you got a lot of that dimensional stuff right. I really liked it. However, I'm not sure if you've read the Multiversity Appendix where Grant actually tells us DC is 5D. It's not 6D, it's 5D, but the context here is that all of fictional space is in the 2D continuum. We are in 3D, Bleed Space is 4D, and everything else above that in Hypertime is 5D. The no monitors are above that even. You can make an argument that they're 6D. The Cosmic Armor and Mandrak are above them, 7D. And then the Overvoid is above that, 8D. So I'm not sure where you're getting this from. Furthermore, have you read Final Crisis? Have you read Dark Crisis Flash Big Bang Issue 1, where they showed you flat out and admitted that the entire Perpetua-verse was a fraud, that it didn't even happen? Are you aware that the sixth dimension where Perpetua was said to be from, and that entire cosmology wasn't actually real, and that it was actually a small locked area of the original Orrery of Worlds, and above the sixth dimension, beyond the source wall, was the rest of the Orrery of Worlds? In fact, when Flash and Lex Luthor learn of this, they go there, and Flash says, "Oh my god, I've been here before. I can remember that I've been here in the past. Oh my goodness, those are worlds I was here before. I was here before Perpetua even made this multiverse. This is crazy. Why is this happening? Oh my god, why is the Anti-Monitor here? And the Anti-Monitor is confused on why I'm still alive. But hey, wait a second. I thought Perpetua had a son named Mobius, the Anti-Monitor. I knew all about him. He knew I was alive. Why is this Anti-Monitor saying he doesn't even know why I'm here? He's completely shocked that I'm here. Oh, wait, because that's the actual Anti-Monitor from Crisis on Infinite Earths, that while the Perpetua verse was going on in a small locked area of the Orrery of Worlds, everything else above that was going on without even noticing what was going on in the Perpetua bubble. My friend, you gotta go read the comics, okay? The entire thing was debunked. Now, I don't know if you've read Death Metal 7, but you can clearly see that the Death Sun, now mind you again, the Death Sun is a metaphor and reference to the end of a continuity. So the Darkest Night gets pushed into the Death Sun, which is called Cosmic Universal Entropy, as the comic book says. And then you can see that Grant Morrison calls him the Death Sun of Ultimate Entropy. So the Darkest Night gets pushed into Mandrak's lower emanation. That's what that sun is. It's actually Mandrak in another form, ready and waiting before Perpetua even arrived. He's got the salt shaker. He's got the chopped onions. He's ready to grill them all up. He's going to put cheese on them, and he's going to eat both of them. And he did. He ate the entire cosmology of the entire Metal to Justice League 2018 to the end of Dark Crisis series. All of that was literally eaten by a lower emanation of Mandrak. So you cannot use the entire Metal and Perpetua series to justify yourself with the sixth dimension when the comic shows you that the Perpetua history never happened. It never happened. The hand and the entire thing was pushed into the Death Sun. That whole thing never happened. Perpetua never happened. That's why she didn't show up in the later issues of Incarnate and Dark Crisis, because in the new history, she was unmade. That entire thing was unmade from the historical account. There is no sixth dimension. There is no tiering the sixth dimension. That's how this works. Anyway, thank you for watching. No hate here. I think your dimensional arguments were great. I completely agree with you on what the context was in like the first 10 minutes of your video, but the other stuff, I think you need a little bit of work.